Hello, I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. Here are your severe weather outlooks covering the next 8 days. We have a special focus on one day in particular, but we still have some areas like in the Northeast, which you're looking at right now, that has a 2 out of 5 chance of getting severe weather. And by chance, I mean a 2 out of 5 in terms of their ratings of widespread severe weather activity. So it's down here on the scale, basically, and it covers much of the Northeast down into North Carolina, even as far south possibly as Atlanta along a front. What type of severe weather is this? Well, when this outlook is issued, it refers to any type of severe weather, and then you can get more specific. Like, for instance, on the tornado risk side, you have a 2% chance, which is their lowest percentage, so not a great chance, and the percentage just means chance of any strength tornado within 25 miles of where you are. So it covers the interior basically of that slight risk area, but not all of it. And if we take a look at NATOcast, it kind of puts an emphasis of 5% right around the Pittsburgh, PA, up to Erie area for later on today. Just to note that sometimes NATOcast can actually focus in on things with kind of a difference from what the SPC, Storm Prediction Center, says. So that's something just to note. And then the other risk today, it's not so much hail. There will be some hail, but the wind risk is pretty high, 30% chance of a severe wind gust. Pittsburgh's in that, New York, nation's capital, down to Richmond, Philadelphia, all those cities are in that highest category. CSU, Colorado State University, has a learning machine model that puts some tornado risk in New England and parts of upstate New York. Otherwise, it emphasizes that wind risk once again in the Carolinas, which basically from Richmond all the way down to almost the northern part of South Carolina. Then we move to Monday. Things settle down quite a bit. In fact, the only thunderstorm risk is a marginal one. That's the level 1. And that's for southeast Colorado, also into Kansas, Garden City, Amarillo, probably Lubbock too, Roswell, North or New Mexico, and much of eastern and northeastern New Mexico. No real focus on type of severe weather with that. There probably will be on later forecasts. For the CSU outlook, we actually have a little tornado risk down along the front there in southern Mississippi, parts of Alabama and Louisiana. Whereas the hail risk is emphasized there where the SPC has put the marginal risk. And indeed, that is probably the primary focus for what those thunderstorms will produce eventually, hail. And in a pretty limited area, too. A fairly weak weather system, but noteworthy nevertheless. On Tuesday, this area here, it's interesting because they're about to get hit again. And this isn't the worst of the days. But from Grand Rapids down to Indianapolis, over to Champaign, Illinois, up to Chicago, Fort Wayne, Indiana, South Bend, Lafayette, all those included. There's only right now a marginal risk of severe weather. Again, the 1 out of 5 on the categories that the Storm Prediction Center uses. But I will notate that StormNet does have a tornado risk that goes about 30% or so in a kind of a subset of that area. So Chicago in there, Valparaiso, Lafayette, South Bend, St. Joe, Michigan, all in that higher risk. And this is from 1 p.m. to 1 a.m., a 12-hour forecast for Sunday. If we look at CSU's version of this, it doesn't actually talk about that risk at all. It barely mentions hail and wind in that area. So this is a case where there is a divergence away from CSU's model, and that does happen. Not too often, but it does happen. So I would kind of watch out there in northern Indiana, parts of Chicagoland, south suburbs, southwest Michigan. That would be on Tuesday. But now this day was highlighted yesterday already, and it's coming back today. This is a 30% chance of any type of severe weather within 25 miles for Wednesday. This would be considered SPC's day 4 forecast. So it is saying something for them to use the highest of the 2 categories that they're going to talk about and do it 4 days out. So right along I-70 in Missouri, back into northern Missouri, where, this has been a pretty active zone for tornado streeters right here, by the way. You remember that tornado a few days ago. So they're definitely close enough to be concerned. But St. Louis, Columbia, Springfield, Illinois, all in this 30% category with a large 15% surrounding that. Now, CSU gets particularly excited about this in that they have a 45% chance of any severe weather in central Missouri, basically, spreading into parts of Illinois. And there's a significant, the hatched area right there, that black, indicates significant severe. And so just be advised, and I already posted on Facebook for folks in the Ozarks that we're on the edge of that, but pretty close. and there's SPC's forecast by comparison. So this one is a little more aggressive and a little farther south. That would affect southwest Missouri and northwest Arkansas. The tornado risk, and this is again StormNet, this is very telling. This is from 1 p.m. to 1 a.m. It is definitely from Quincy, Illinois, straight up east-northeast to Fort Wayne, Indiana. Includes the southern suburbs of Chicago in the highest risk area, but the highest risk is Bloomington and Champaign-Urbana, Springfield, Illinois, Decatur, Illinois, Macomb. Those are the high-risk areas as it looks right now for Wednesday in the afternoon into the evening hours. And then I'll advance this from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. on Wednesday into Thursday morning. It just shifts. So the whole thing goes from here over to here. So Fort Wayne, yes, but now we're starting to include Detroit and Toledo and Cleveland and many other cities there in northwest Ohio that I may have left out are in that risk area. So that's something to really be watched carefully. And then that all shifts on Thursday a little bit more to the east. So much of Pennsylvania, the northern part of Virginia, all of West Virginia, parts of Ohio and Kentucky. So we're looking at Huntington and Parkersburg and Pittsburgh and Harrisburg, capital of Pennsylvania, Allentown, Scranton, New York City, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia is in that too. Richmond is technically in that as well. So again, be on the lookout for that Thursday. There's the forecast I just showed you. Here is CSU's look at it, a little bit more widespread with the possibility of a 15% percentage on that day. And finally, we'll wrap up with the NIU forecast. These are composite supercell percentages. So basically, you just take these 7 days right here, add up the chance of getting a supercell, and accumulate it basically at every pixel. So this kind of sums up what's happening. A lot of this is going to be Wednesday right here, and some of this is Monday. And then the week after that, still pretty active. Again, you get signs that there's a cooler, more stable air here, but and along and maybe to the northwest of that front that I just talked about, that's where some supercell probabilities are high. And amazingly, out in Oklahoma again, they had a pretty quiet May. I just wonder what will happen here toward the end of June and into July. It's not necessarily a done deal that severe weather ends, especially going in here into the 4th of July weekend. The severe weather index is pretty high, and it's been consistent for a couple of days now with that type of percentage, 30%, in about the same area.